If you live in the northeast, there's certain things that go kind of without saying, isn't there? You can be both red and white, you can be black and white. It's pronounced mam, not mum, and always respect the tide times on the Holy Island Causeway. And we tell you about them every single morning. Over the years, we've heard many stories of drivers getting caught out. It's become a frustration for many locals, including Leon Maughan from Northumberland. He's taken matters into his own hands by creating an app that tells you when the causeway is and isn't safe to cross. He's originally from Northumberland, but now based in Utrecht in the Netherlands, where he joins me from now. Good morning, Leon.
Hi, Matt. Hi. Nice to be here.
Look, thank you for coming on this morning. Now, I understand your family runs several businesses on Holy Island, so the causeway is kind of something you've grown up with. Why did you want to develop this app for it then?
Yeah, so my dad we have a family business on the island. We run 3 of the hotels on the island. And, we get a lot of guests before they come to the island asking us, how does the causeway work? How can we check the times? And there's just a bit of anxiety from people where they're not quite sure if they've got it right or if they've understood it. So we just wanted to make it really, really simple for them. And I thought if we just had an app that showed them like a red light if it wasn't safe to cross and a green kind of it's safe to cross indicator, that would make things really easy, make things easier for them, and just to give them a bit of peace of mind. But and it works offline, so they don't need to have any signal on the island as well, because there's not always the best signal on the island. So we just wanted to make it for them, but also anyone that's local, anyone that wants to visit the island in the summer or over Easter, they can use it.
I guess that's one of the important things, and one of the things that sets this app apart then is the fact it works offline. Because, I mean, look, the obvious question I initially had, Leon, was, why do we need this? Because you can just check the tide times, you can check the safe crossing times online.
Yeah, I mean, you and me and anyone that lives locally understand how it works. They know where to go to check the tide times. They know what to type into Google. Yeah. But I think if you're a visitor to the area and you're driving towards the island, you see a lot of signs that make you feel a bit uncertain. A lot of signs warning you've got to check the tide times. And I think it just creates a little bit of ambiguity that people that aren't familiar with it. So we just wanted to make it super easy for them, remove all of that uncertainty, and have something that's actually live and updates every second and goes, it's safe to cross now. In 1 hour, it won't be safe to cross. And that's that sort of clarity around it.
Yeah, so it makes it really, really simple. I mean, you're a meteorologist by trade, Leon, so obviously you know your stuff when it comes to weather. And am I right in thinking you can kind of tell what the tide is going to do pretty much years in advance, isn't it? But I guess it's the weather as well that changes things.
So the tides are all controlled by the sun and the moon and the gravity. So exactly where the moon is right now and exactly where the sun is right now, that tells you exactly how high the tide is going to be. So there's no problem predicting that out, 500 years from now. Of course, the weather's the other factor. So if there is strong winds from the south, that can create a bit of a storm surge. That can make the tide a little bit higher than it otherwise would be. But the app doesn't factor in the weather, but the council website doesn't factor in the weather either. So the tide times are pretty conservative anyway. So even if the weather's bad, as long as it's green, you're pretty safe to cross the causeway. Yeah.
Okay. One of the most asked questions, Leon, and obviously the app is there and can be in your hands. But one of the most asked questions is why there isn't a physical barrier that comes down on the causeway like a level crossing. Why? For everyone who often messages me that, says, why do you just have that? What's the reasons, Leon?
It's a really good question, but for locals on the island, they've got a little bit more of a personal relationship with the causeway. They know when they can get off. They know when they can risk it. But also, if they're in an emergency and they have to get to the mainland, if they've got to get to a hospital, they don't want to have a barrier to drive through. So it's more like we want to give people the liberty to make their own choices, especially for locals on the island. I think the idea is debated whether there should be a physical barrier there, but there's not one now, and I think a lot of people wouldn't like it if there was one.
Right. Okay, well, Leon, it's fascinating stuff, and we thought, you know what, we'll get in touch with Northumberland County Council to see what they think about this. Glenn Sanderson is the council leader.
I would welcome any new initiative that will help visitors that aren't clear about crossing times, and if it works, that would be really helpful. The council already do a huge amount of work pointing out when the safe crossing times are, both online, and there was something like 123,000 visits to that particular website of ours last year. We've got these big interactive signs and so on. But at the end of the day, there are always a few people who, for whatever reason, get stuck. It's not only very dangerous for them, but it's also a very expensive operation to sort out because it involves getting Coast Guard and other services to come and rescue them. So any help on top of the work that we already do would be welcomed. I suppose the only thing I would be careful about is to make sure that that information was always kept up to date and that was always checked for accuracy.
Now, someone who knows very well what not respecting the tide can lead to is Nick Ayres. He is the RNLI's water safety lead for our region. Also joins me this morning. Morning, Nick.
Good morning. Thanks for having us on.
No, thank you for coming on. How much of an impact does a causeway rescue have on the RNLI?
It's quite a big one. Locally, it's one of our number one call-outs for the stations of Berwick-upon-Tweed, Sea Houses. And it does, like the councillor said, it does draw on a lot of resource from lifeboat crews to ambulance crews to Coast Guard crews, potentially for something that is, like you say, is predictable and can be avoided.
Absolutely. And this is one of those issues that keeps coming up. I guess most people in the Northeast, well aware of the dangers and what not to do. And if I'm ever planning on going to Hawley Island, I'll check the crossing times before we even leave the house. Why do you think people are still getting caught out, though?
I think, we know through research from Bangor University that tidal literacy is very poor around the UK and Ireland. And it's something that we need to try and crack. So we need to work out what is the best information. And things like apps, traffic lights, text by tides, we know that they work because they provide that information right there in the moment of can I cross, can I not cross. So we welcome any form of design of whether it's a poster, an app, a light signal, to try and help warn people, especially visitors, like you say, local residents in the area. They're familiar with the tidal crossing, and they'll know what to do, when to cross. But unfortunately, when people want to enjoy the coastline on the Northumberland coastline, it's something that we need to try and get the message across to everybody so they can enjoy the day.
Yeah, well, I guess this brand new app that Leon's created could hopefully lead to less call-outs for the causeway, Nick.
It would be brilliant, to get some good feedback from the app. How many people have visited it, used it. We do volunteer patrols on the island, especially over sort of key weekends, big busy bank holiday weekends, and regularly engaged with visitors. So it would be good to sort of link up with Leon and sort of do some on the ground Q&A and see how many people have used it, what their feelings are. So we welcome it.
Excellent. Well, Nick, thank you for joining us this morning. Leon, there you go. I mean, it's got the ring of approval from the council and also from the RNLI, who I guess are the people that you're really trying to help, as well as people crossing the causeway. So, I mean, is the app available? Is it ready to download? What's it called? How do we get it? Is it launched?
Yeah, it's been out for a couple of weeks now, and people have been giving a lot of positive feedback on Facebook groups. But if you just type in Hawley Island crossing times into the App Store, you can download it for your iPhone. And if you have an Android phone, you have to go to hawleyislandtides.uk. So you've got to go to hawleyislandtides.uk, and then you can install it on your Android phone as well.
Right. Okay. So it's Hawley Island crossing times, free to download, Leon?
Free to download, it's a free app. You can use it for free. It's just there to help people that want to visit the island.
Brilliant, Leon. Well, thank you very much, mate. It seems like such a simple idea, but quite often the simple ideas are the best, and no one else has thought of it. So, mate, we shall hopefully this year I'm reporting on 0 people having to be rescued from crossing the causeway due to